The insertion of the deltoid muscle is... Oh, sorry guys. I've just got this huge anatomy final tomorrow, so I made a bunch of flashcards, and I'm not going to stop till I get through them all. We've all cram studied at some point in our lives. I've cram studied on countless occasions. But have you ever felt like a lot of that information was just fleeting? Have you ever gotten to the testing center only to find a question you know you've studied the answer to, but for the life of you, you can't think of it? There's a better way to study and retain information. I'm going to mention not only the pitfalls of cram studying, but also offer a solution to the problem. Take a look at this graph presented by a German psychologist way back in the 1800s. It's called the forgetfulness curve. From this, we can see that as soon as we hear new information, we're pretty good at regurgitating that information. The startling statistic, however, is that after just 20 minutes, we're down to 60% retention, and after a few short days, already down to 20%. What that means for us cram studiers is that when we sit to cram, we're going to have to reteach ourselves about 80% of the material. Wouldn't it make more sense just to never forget that material? What's more, if we get through BYU by cramming and then shortly thereafter forgetting most of the information, can we say that we graduated much more career ready than when we started? Would you want to see a doctor that's forgotten half of his procedures, or a lawyer who only knew 50% of the law? Of course not. Cram studying may work in school, but it doesn't work in life. There has to be a better way. Researchers at Dartmouth University think they've found that better way in what they've called spaced repetition. What they found is that students who look at smaller bits of information at increasingly longer intervals of time are better able to retain that new information. This graph presented by Wired.com seems to support their claim. As you can see, after just 4 repetitions, we're already at 90% retention. Compare that to the 20% you get by cramming. When I saw these statistics, I was sold, but being from the technology era, I wanted to find an app that could help me do this. After much research and personal experience, what I've found is that Anki is by far the best app to exploit the spacing effect. The best way to understand Anki and how it works is by looking at the cards. First, take a look at this new card. As you can see, the information here is stuff I haven't studied very much. As a result, I need to see that card more often, and the intervals of time before I see that card again are much smaller. Compare this to a more mature card with information that I've seen quite often. As you can see here, the intervals are much larger. The idea is for me to review that card just as soon as my brain's about to forget the information it contains. In this way, I can almost trick my brain into overriding the forgetfulness curve and retaining information for a lifetime. Aside from exploiting the spacing effect, what sets Anki apart from its competitors is its versatility. You can make cards with just about anything. Diagrams with the labels blocked out, pictures, videos, fill-in-the-blank questions, normal content questions, anything. You know how you study best, and Anki's not here to change you. It's simply here to make you maximize your study time. If you don't feel like making your own cards, you can choose from thousands of pre-made decks online. I use Anki for all my classes, and I make all my own cards. My wife, who's a Brazilian citizen and isn't currently studying at BYU, has downloaded several decks from Anki that contain thousands of English words for her to perfect her English. You can find an Anki deck for just about anything you want to learn. The final thing that sets Anki apart from its competitors such as Quizlet or Flashcards Plus is the fact that it makes learning so much fun. For those of you that are competitive and a little bit nerdy like me, there's nothing better than going to bed and having no cards due. I view that as a win for me. When I go to bed and there's still some cards left over, the game has beaten me. By viewing it as a game, studying has taken on a new light for me. All of a sudden, it's not a burden, it's something I enjoy. As a result, my grades have gone up. Speaking of grades, how long do you study for your midterms? 10? 15 hours? What if I told you that not once this semester have I sat down to consciously study for a midterm, and still my grades are higher than they've ever been? A couple of months ago, I went in to take my anatomy midterm. The average time spent on the test was an hour, and the average score was just over 70%. I left after 10 minutes with 100%. A couple weeks after, I went in to take the lab practical. Walked out 6 minutes later with a 98%. I don't tell you these stats to brag or boast, I tell you these stats to persuade. If Anki has worked for me, it most certainly will work for you. I'm a senior here at BYU. I only discovered Anki this past semester. Needless to say, I've spent hundreds of hours cramming the night before big tests. And I'm embarrassed to admit that if you were to quiz me on these hundreds of flashcards I studied just last semester, I couldn't tell you the answer to half of them. It's embarrassing, it's madness. With finals just around the corner, are you going to wait until your one and only reading day to start studying? Stop the madness now. Download Anki today and watch your grades soar in the future.